let's shift our focus now. Ahead of the G20 Summit in Delhi, the CDRI, or the Coalition for Disaster-Resistant Infrastructure, has held multiple meetings with their global counterparts to chalk out a cohesive strategy on global interdependency to mitigate climate extremism. Now, at a time when a large population in the world is vulnerable due to climate risks or earthquakes, wildfires, heat waves, heavy rainfalls leading to floods, disaster resistance infrastructure assumes significance to reduce and prevent future risks. I'm joined by Amit Prothi, Director General of the CDRI, to speak exclusively on how the CDRI plans to work in tandem with Prime Minister Modi's vision of a new age infrastructure and challenges as well. Amit, thank you very much for taking the time out and joining us here on Mirror Now. In fact, let me begin by asking you this. Large population is staring at a risk of being vulnerable owing to natural calamities. If you could tell us, with G20 presidency in India, how do you look forward to chalking out a strategy with your global counterparts to manage risk?
So, I think first of all, I want to acknowledge that this is the first time under India's presidency that the G20 group is discussing disaster risk reduction. It's the first time there's a working group that was established under this presidency to discuss disaster risk reduction. CDRI has been a knowledge partner to the presidency. So right from even before the meetings of the G20, we have been supporting the presidency with, background information, input papers, etc., trying to see how do we support DRR going into the future. Now, when I say that, the working group has established 5 priorities. The DRR working group on the G20 are looking at 5 key priority areas. One is early warnings. So, when you think about, I think you may be getting an SMS message sometimes, right, on your phone saying so-and-so area is flooded, don't go there. Or, so this is essentially part of early warning, which India has done an exceptionally good job in Odisha, for example, where, we know when a cyclone is coming and we can warn the population to say, avoid certain kinds of behavior if so that you don't get impacted by the cyclone. So there's a whole priority. One is on early warning. Second priority is on disaster resilient infrastructure. So that's the agenda that we have supported quite closely. And the reason for that is, when you look at countries like India that have to build incredible amount of infrastructure still, the ambition is how do we build that in a way that it doesn't get, like you just said, it doesn't get washed off in a landslide, or it doesn't get impacted by an earthquake, or it functions during a cyclone. Your power system, if your transmission lines don't work or collapse because of high wind speeds, that doesn't help us. So DRI is like trying to look at how do you withstand risks that are increasing in your infrastructure system so that things don't fail when you need them, right? I mean, when there's a flood or when there's an earthquake is actually when you need these systems to work. So that's what the agenda for CDRI. That's the agenda that G20 is looking at under these 5 priorities. So the third priority is on nature-based solutions. The fourth priority is on finance. And the fourth priority is on building back better. So, if some things collapse during a disaster, how do you build it so it doesn't collapse again on the next cycle of, events? So that's called building back better. And the last one is on financing. So how do you innovate on financing? These are 5 priorities that G20 has established, and we are helping them with knowledge, with evidence, with examples of what this means, what kind of support G20 should be providing to this agenda.
Amit, as you point that out, Prime Minister, of course, has a vision for smart cities, Ujjwal Bharat. He's particularly interested in bettering the infrastructure in the country. How are you going to use the learnings and experiences at G20 to try and have a synergy with Prime Minister's vision?
Sure. So, the Prime Minister's vision is both infrastructure within India, but also be a global leader showcasing India's solution to the world, right? So CDRI, in a way, fits very well with both of those agendas. On the infrastructure to be built within India, the opportunity for us is to bring in expertise, experience from our coalition partners that are global and say how, so we are trying to do that in several different infrastructure systems. For example, we're looking at the state of Odisha to understand how coastal wind speeds are changing because of climate change, and how should the electricity transmission system be enhanced to address the newer risks that are coming, right? So we're doing that through experience shared with our coalition partners. So that's just an example of bringing experience, expertise to India. Similarly, we're actually bringing Indian expertise to other nations. We're doing work in small island development states. We've got a program called IRIS, Infrastructure for Resilient Island States, where we're also trying to bring expertise or solutions that we may have tried out to other nations. So, CDRI works in both directions, both expertise, global expertise to India, but also Indian expertise to a global audience where there is a need to address these risks.
Right. Thank you very much for joining us on the broadcast and helping us better understand this. But for the moment, we're going to leave the conversation at that. Thank you very much once again.